Hey guys, I'm Viktorious, and some of you guys probably know me as a Diamond Viktor one trick. If you've been watching my videos, you'll notice I play a lot of Viktor. I'm not sure if the name gave it away, but nonetheless, I do play a lot of Viktor. Specifically on Viktorious, I only play Viktor, and I've been doing that since about Season 7. Playing Viktor in every game, every matchup, every lane besides jungle and support, because that's kind of troll, has allowed me to broaden my understanding of the champion and allowed me to gain a lot of experience in specific matchups and specific details that allow me to win the game. With Season 11, a lot of things have changed with Viktor. He's been getting more popular, and one of the main things is perfect hex core was removed and the mythic items added in. A lot of people are asking questions on how to play him. So in this video, I'm gonna go ahead and go over builds and runes and a little bit of the play styles that kind of correlate with those, as well as an in-depth ability guide going over how to use his laser, smart casting it, Q animation cancel, E flash buffer, etc., and just overall give you some tips and tricks that get you set up for the next season. With that out of the way, let's begin. All right, with runes, we'll go ahead and start on the standard popular pick for Viktor right now, which is Phase Rush Domination Tree. I've also been seeing Phase Rush Inspiration Tree, but we'll go ahead and go over that real quick. In terms of Phase Rush, I would say it is the most optimal, most consistent pick you can go with Viktor. In a situation, if you were doing a blind pick Viktor, Phase Rush can definitely get you there 9 out of 10 times of the day. Typically with Phase Rush, you want to go mana flow ban because you want to make sure you have that mana to keep up with your high cost abilities. Typically I'll see celerity or absolute focus used. Absolute focus, if you can keep yourself above 50% health, you can utilize that extra damage to your advantage, especially with early skirmishes. Celerity, you gotta go fast. And of course Transcendence for the cooldown reduction, but typically I like to go either one of these two, and I'm more favored to the absolute focus. I like to keep myself healthy and putting out high DPS with my laser poke. Scorch as well goes with that as well, because when I use my laser, I'm burning them. Domination's a good sustain tree setup with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter for the mid to late game. If you need more sustain early, you need to survive a lot of poke, a lot of potential ganks. Inspiration secondary is also really solid. Typically either biscuit delivery with Cosmic Insight or Time Warp Tonic, but what I'm mostly favored to is Cosmic Insight. So these two right here is what I like to go with. Gives me just the amount of healing I need from biscuits, keeps me in the lane a little bit longer, as well as allows me to have my summoner spell up more often, which in this case will more than likely be teleport if I'm trying to play that early sustain setup. Attack speed rune is kind of underrated, I'd say. It's very good for Viktor, especially when you're constantly pushed under turret. It makes it easy to last hit under turret more effectively, to push the waves whenever you need to and get those proper back timings. And for the last one, I usually go health if I don't really know what matchup I'm going against. Otherwise, armor into 80 matchups and magic resist into AP matchups. I also like to consider the enemy jungle and their potential skirmishes and their potential ganks into this decision as well. If they're going to be ganking a lot early, I might be going into this defensive here to counter them as well. So this is the standard Phase Rush Domination, Phase Rush Inspiration. You're going to see that 9 out of 10 times. Now, the other one, and this one's a little bit more fun, is, of course, Electrocute. So Electrocute is a no-brainer for Viktor because his Q animation auto cancel with his E is a very quick combo that can put out a lot of DPS very, very quickly. And paired with Lichbane and Ludens for burst, you can 100-0 pretty much any carry in the mid to late game. That being said, the one big drawback with Electrocute is, of course, having to rely on getting yourself in that position to reliably hit that Q auto attack while still being safe enough that you're not going to get destroyed for being so close. So I wouldn't take Electrocute into matchups that aren't really favored to me in the mid lane, ones that are very highly favored early game for the opponent. I'll more than likely not go Electrocute. If they've got a range advantage on me, I'd probably not go Electrocute. And if the jungler is a very early aggressive jungler on the enemy side, I probably won't go Electrocute, because being too close to put that damage out will put me in a very bad disadvantage when it comes to them jumping on me later. This is definitely a feast or famine kind of setup, but it can work wonders for you if you need to be that damage source for your team. So of course with Electrocute, you've got Taste of Blood, pretty solid with the Ravenous Hunter combo. Again, gives you that sustain that we talked about earlier. One thing I do like to do, and specifically in the bot lane I really like to do this, is potentially consider Cheap Shot. So Cheap Shot of course increases that extra damage for you based on the CC, and in a certain situation, with a single one-on-one situation in mid lane, you're not going to be able to reliably hit CC on them with your gravity field to proc Cheap Shot. But in the bot lane as an ADC, in low range ADC matchups like Vayne and Jinx, things like that, Electrocute comes in really handy with Cheap Shot. Let's say you have a hard CC support, they lock them down, you get that extra damage output, you chain gravity field, you're able to get more damage output, and you can really take big use of that Cheap Shot and get a really good aggressive lead. Definitely a more aggressive approach, and probably won't work past like mid-plat, low diamond elo, but still definitely something to keep in mind to take advantage of. Eyeball Collection or Zombie Ward, depending on how aggressive you're going to play. And again, Ravenous Hunter is just a really good sustain option. As for Sorcery Secondary, if I'm going to be running Electrocute, I'm going to be playing aggressive. I'm going to be looking for that burst, and to really enhance that burst, I'm going to be running Absolute Focus, right? So Absolute Focus, as long as we can keep ourselves above that health threshold, we can really take advantage of that Electrocute proc, especially in the early laning phase. So into melee matchups, that can really get in handy if you can know you can take that advantage from them, either pushing them off the minions, denying them CS, or really taking aggressive trades. Mana Flow Ban, of course, allows us to continue to work with that and have the mana for. In this situation, if I'm running Electrocute, I could still go with attack speed, but it takes a little bit away from my raw damage. But one of the arguments you can make for attack speed is you're able to get that auto attack out sooner. So if you're not able to proc Electrocute ideally from your ability, you might be able to proc Electrocute just solely from an extra auto attack that's hitting them as they're walking away from you. With that said, those are the two main setups. Another one is Aerie. Quickly just throw this together real quick. So again, Aerie is kind of the stepsister to the Phase Rush right now for Viktor, but still has its merits. Aerie is one of those setups that you want to keep that poke damage high. Maybe they have a lot of healing and you don't want to keep them very healthy. You want to constantly keep them poked down. Aerie is really good to constantly keep that damage up while still being safe away. This is more of a laser focused kind of poke, whereas Electrocute was more Q range focused kind of poke. With that being said, of course, with Aerie, you're going to go ahead and run Mana Flow Ban. Transcendence is not terrible. Again, Absolute Focus is still really, really solid. I think it's a very underrated rune for a lot of reasons. And if you're really going to be looking to do damage and poke, and you have that confidence in yourself to land that damage output and keep that prio in your lane, I'd say Absolute Focus is a godsend. Scorch, of course, goes really well with that Aerie damage. Now, for secondary, it's very interesting, right? You could go the Domination, right? You could even go the Inspiration. But what I do like to do into matchups that I have to keep that distance, but still want to keep that poke damage going out, right? I sometimes go Resolve, right? In the Viktor mains community, it's called Maokai runes, but essentially what you're going with is you're going Shield Bash and Bone Plating to really allow yourself to take that extra damage and that little bit of tankiness, while also synergizing with your Q animation, Q auto attack with your shield. So really solid. I typically like to go this setup with armor runes into like Zed, for example, because Zed, he's constantly going to be trying to poke with his Q and trying to get CS. You can apply that poke damage with summon Airy, keep him down, keep him low. If he tries to aggress on you, you have bone plating to keep you safe as long as it's up, and you can kind of work around those windows to keep that advantage. So I really like this setup into Zed. And lastly, we're gonna go ahead and throw in another one just for fun. I wouldn't recommend this at all in ranked, but I'm sure you've seen it on the channel, and that's the Stack Machine. Stack Machine, of course, is Dark Harvest, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Sorcery, Mana Flow Bland, Absolute Focus. Yeah, there you go. So the Stack Machine obviously is reliant on Dark Harvest. What's interesting with Dark Harvest is you can really ramp up your damage with your laser and your ults and the resets you get from the team fights. So if you can reliably farm Dark Harvest stacks in the early to mid game, it's going to exponentially increase your output potential in the late game. That being said, I wouldn't suggest doing this in any elos past platinum. And the way you really want to farm that Stack Machine is you have to play very aggressive, apply a lot of damage early, get them to use their potions early, and then try to keep them in the lane as long as possible while just proccing little lasers here and there every single time it comes off cooldown. That's the ideal situation. You're always so going to want to look for roam potential and just constantly applying and building those stacks. It's not ideal. It's not the most favored for you, and I definitely recommend experimenting with Stack Machine because it does take a little bit more confidence in your abilities to execute properly. All right, guys, so I'll go ahead and get started on the items. So items, very first thing we should probably start with is our starting items. Well, our starting items are pretty straightforward. You can go Doran's Ring, double health potion. This is pretty standard. If we need a little bit more sustain early, there's a lot of potential for a bunch of early damage. We want to just survive the lane. We can go ahead and go with corrupting potion start. But the problem with corrupting potion start is we're losing out on a lot of that AP, a lot of that that mana regen and that early sustain potential. So it's specifically that AP and the extra 5 damage to minions comes really high and handy. So 90% of the time I'd still want to go Doran's Ring and just play a little safer than going Corrupting Potion, but Corrupting Potion does have its nuances, and we can definitely go over that in a future video. So once we have our Doran's Ring bought, then of course on our first recall, depending on the matchup, we'll either go for a Lost Chapter, which is 1300, right? So any AP matchup or any non-AD assassin matchup, we definitely want to try to prioritize getting this item as soon as possible, because this is what builds into any one of our mythic items. And in terms of AD matchups, an early Seeker's Arm Guard definitely comes in handy to survive that early aggression from a Kiana mid, Zed mid, etc. Now, of course, when we got our Lost Chapter, we got some options. There are 3 mythic items that come out of Lost Chapter. Only 2 of them really are standard for Viktor. I don't really play too much of the Everfrost, but these 2 standard are the ones you're going to play the most. Primarily Luden's Tempest, 90% of the time, for that extra burst and synergy with his kit. However, if you're into matchups like you have a lot of Orns or Volley Bears and a lot of just really beefy dudes on your team that your team's not going to be able to deal with, building Leandries while sacrificing a little burst may come in handy more, and your playstyle will shift to applying that consistent DPS with your ults sitting on top of them and just putting that damage out. But let's say we go ahead and go Luden's Tempest. This is the standard start. Now, typically if the champions are in a vulnerable area and you can deal with them pretty consistently, you'd want to go ahead and go with a Lichbane purchase. With a Lichbane purchase, you synergize as your 2 core items for Viktor, right? You got your burst and your movement speed from Ludens, and you've got the burst from Lichbane with synergy of the Q auto attack and the E combo for burst. This specifically is the build you're going to want to go if you want to electrocute. If you want to electrocute, you want to go this probably about 100% of the time if you can. Obviously, there's situations where the game gets away from you and you have to build a little defensive, but if you can help it, if you win electrocute this game, you're definitely going to want to go with these 2. If you went Phase Rush or Airy, you have a little bit of options. Instead of going Lichbane, you could potentially go Cosmic Drive. Now, Cosmic Drive is kind of a little troll. It's not really that great, but if you need that mobility and you want to be that nuance into the team with Phase Rush synergy, whatever, Cosmic Drive is not a bad item. It's not the most optimal, but it's not a bad item. Another item I would go, depending on if they're building a lot of magic resist really early, I might just go ahead and build straight into a Void Staff. If we need to cover some healing reduction, I might go Oblivion Orb and sit on it. And if it gets too ridiculous, I might go Morellos. Death Cap, again, pretty high synergy. Or if I need to survive a mage, early game mage, that's really getting aggressive, I can go Banshee's Veil. If I need a little bit of that health burn, the tanky dudes are getting a little bigger, I went Ludens because I wanted to burst, but the tanky dudes are getting out of control and I didn't expect them to, then going Demonic Embrace isn't a bad option either. Overall, Viktor has a lot of adaptability and versatility in his build paths, and there's not really a cookie cutter way to build him. Really, what dictates your first 2 or your core items comes down to your rune choice. So at the end of the day, if you want to electrocute, you're going to want to always go Ludens, Lichbane if you can help it. If you didn't go electrocute, you went Phase Rush or Airy, then you have a little bit more options under your belt. Now, when it comes to the other mythic items, you could go you wouldn't go Rocket Belt at all. I don't think it's ever a viable item for Viktor. Him dashing into somebody just makes no sense for him being an immobile mage. So this is pretty much never going to be the case. Riftmaker, I can see the argument. I'd see it be more of a potential item if you're playing Viktor top. But even then, I'd still say that Luden's Temp is just too good of a synergy to pass up for Viktor, so I wouldn't go Riftmaker. The only other item that's kind of decent, and it really depends on the playstyle you're playing, is Night Harvester. Now, Night Harvester is kind of one of those feast or famine kind of setups, and if I went Night Harvester, I definitely want to pair it with an early tier because you're no longer getting that mana from this mythic tree. However, if I wanted to go Night Harvester, potentially even Night Harvester Dark Harvest, which is a little insane, but Night Harvester Dark Harvest, I'd go Tier of the Goddess, sit on tier, build in a Night Harvester, and just put out that extra DPS in the team fights. Personally, if you're going Night Harvester, what you're looking for is proccing a bunch of Night Harvester stacks just all at once or very, very often in the team fight with your ultimate, and you're staying a little bit further away from everybody else. Whereas if you're going Luden's Tempest, you want to run into the team fight, you want to proc that QE, you want to space out properly, you want to dodge specific skill shots and just become that overall DPS menace. So even then, even though Night Harvester might have a niche, I don't think it's anything you should be considering in a ranked solo queue duo game, and primarily leave it to custom games and normals and flex queue. Luden's Tempest, Liandry's, at the end of the day, very simple. Luden's Tempest, always. Liandry's into tanks. Right now, that's how it is. Maybe it changes. Maybe the items get balanced out differently, and we'll reevaluate. But right now, at the beginning of Season 11, that's how we would start that. For the abilities, we're going to go ahead and do it without items so we don't get confused with all the animation effects of the items. But we'll go ahead and go through with Q. So Q, Viktor blasts an enemy unit, dealing 75 magic damage while gaining Viktor's shield, absorbs the damage, next 2.5 seconds. Then he does basic attack, dealing bonus magic damage. With an upgrade, it just increases the shield by 60%, and he gains 30% movement speed on his Q. So Q is pretty straightforward. Q's got a range. It's about this big, right? Anywhere in that range. If I press Q, it gives me a shield. It does damage. Then I have a small window, right? Do it again. Small window where I can attack and it will do a beam of damage. It's in my increased attack. If I Q auto, there you go. That is the Q ability. Now, something very interesting about the Q ability. You can actually animation cancel the Q ability and make it slightly faster. So, if you Q auto, that's what you're looking at, right? But if you Q animation cancel, it's much faster. Now, the only difference I did is I right-clicked, moved right as I was throwing the Q out. So, see how quick that is? As the Q's mid-travel, I can basically throw the attack out as the ability's still in the air, which allows me to burst them just a little bit faster and catch them off guard. As opposed to anything else, that's really the only thing that the Q can do for you. Another thing that's really helpful about the Q is if it's upgraded and you're trying to chase somebody down, don't be afraid to use that Q to get yourself closer to them. Viktor's W, Gravity Field. Viktor deploys a gravitational imprisonment device for 4 seconds, slowing enemy units by 30% and adding a stack every 0.5 seconds. At 3 stacks, the target is stunned for 1.5 seconds. Viktor's non-periodic spells apply a 20% slow to enemies for 1 second. So his upgrade's basically a free Rylai's. This is the range. This is how big of a range I can throw the W. Now, Viktor's W works in a way that if I cast it outside of the circle, it will just make his model walk up to it and then cast it down, right? But if I wanted to cast it while not moving at all, this indicator right here on the edge, as long as the center of this gravity field is in the indicator, it will just toss it down. So that is your max range W for Viktor, right? One of the good things about Viktor's W is it's not just used as a stun tool. You want to use it as also a potential zone tool. At dragon fights, you can use the W to block off certain jungle entrances when they're trying to come in. Another thing you can do with the W is you can use it as a stun that you can throw onto your ally that's about to get ganked on in a team fight. So what I mean by that is, so Viktor's typically long range, you stay kind of decently away from the rest of the skirmish. Somebody gets caught, you see them getting caught, typically the response is everyone then jumps on that person, you throw a gravity field on that person, and you're allowing people to potentially get baited into getting stunned in your gravity field. Other than those situations, it's very difficult to actually land a stun for W on any individual person in 1v1, and primarily the W is just going to be used as a zone tool or as a chain CC tool. However, you can utilize the W when you're getting dived on and throwing it underneath you for survivability. You can throw the W as a barrier or a wall to keep yourself safe from a gank from an enemy jungler. Or you can use your W aggressively. If they're standing still to cast an ability, you might be able to get them caught in the W. Once they're caught in a W, the stun is so long that you're able to get a free hit of your laser, your E auto, as well as 2 procs of your ultimate if you started the ultimate cast in the beginning. We'll go ahead and skip the E for now. We'll go to R first and then come to E, because E is the one that is the most complex and most involved. R is pretty straightforward. Viktor confers a singularity at target location, dealing magic damage and interrupting enemy channels. Viktor can redirect the singularity for 6.5 seconds, which will discharge magic damage every 1 second to nearby enemies. The singularity will move slower as it attempts to move away further from Viktor, and his ultimate just makes it move faster. Okay, so real quick, I'll show you the ability. It's constantly doing tick damage every second. You can also move it by casting ult and just keep hitting R, and it will follow your cursor. And if you cast it on a target, you see the little indicator right here on them. That indicates that the ult is going to automatically follow them. So if you know someone's going to be walking away from you, or you need a Zhonya's for survivability, but you want to make sure that ult follows a certain target, you can actually ult on them, find that little indicator on them, and it will automatically try to follow them and chase them. As long as they're not dashing or flashing away, it will try to stick on them as best as it can. So that's something to keep in mind, is if you're about to die, throw that ult on a carry that is low HP, or you think you can probably kill them, or they just used all their mobility abilities. Throw that ult on them, make sure it's targeted on them, and then die for the greatness of your team, and just watch and see if that ultimate can secure you that kill after death. It's the most satisfying thing aside from a max range laser, which we'll go ahead and go over now. So Viktor's laser, his bread and butter, his death ray. Viktor uses his robotic arm to fire a chaos beam that cuts across the field in a line, dealing magic damage to every enemy in its path. Versus upgrade, it does an aftershock, and an explosion follows the wake, dealing extra magic damage. Now, this is the ability that a lot of people have issues with, specifically with the smart casting of it. So let me show you what normal casting looks like. You find a point somewhere inside your circle. You then left click, aim your cursor on the angle that you want it to go on the vector, and then let go. So that's normal casting. Some people think that that's easier. I am not some of those people. I will highly recommend that if you're going to be playing Viktor, if you don't like smart casting, I highly recommend smart casting the laser, and I'll explain why. So smart casting the laser is really awesome in the sense that you don't have to know that circle. If you can understand this range, that's all you need to know, because then now you can then find a point in that circle range, hold down E, and now it's doing the exact same thing as before, but now I have my whole entire hand off my mouse right now. I don't have to left click. I don't have to do anything. I just have my finger on E right now. My finger is on E. Other hand is in the air. I can then aim it where I want it to go. Again, hand off the entire mouse, and then let go of E. See that? Let's do that again. So E, hold down, hand off mouse, let go of E. It's that simple. So what's great about that is that in the moment, while I'm moving around as Viktor, one of the other things that you have to know about Viktor's laser is it can be cast while moving. So if I'm moving and I'm putting a move command out, I don't want to be busy trying to left click and cast an E. I just want to cast it. So if I'm moving, simple, right? I'm moving down, hold down E, let go, and I'm still moving. You see how that works? So I could be kiting and throwing the E out. Another thing that's very interesting about Viktor is that you can really bait some people if you understand the max range. So then let's talk about max range laser, right? Max range laser, you got your range, you got your circle, the edge of the circle, and then the edge of the point is your max range laser. So let's go ahead and stand right there. That's max range laser, right? You can actually find it because just like his W, it'll make you walk to it. So if you have this casted on him, that's max range, okay? Right now, we're just right past this block, right? Well, here's really interesting about Viktor. Remember, we can cast his ability while moving. If we know that this is about his max range, and we're right here, and we're walking backwards, now when I'm moving backwards, and by the time the laser actually hits them, look how much bigger my range now is. Even though technically I never changed my range, mentally, it really messes with people. Because if I'm back here and they see the laser coming to them, they're expecting it to stop right in front of them. So they think they're safe, but they're not. Because you're walking backwards at the same moment that you were throwing the laser out, you hit them. Watch, we'll do it again. So remember, this is right where that max range is. We calculated that. Right here is the cursor that I need to be clicking. to hit him, right? So I'm gonna walk backwards, start there, throw laser. Simple. I'd highly recommend going to the practice tool, trying that out, and getting a real good feel of the laser and the angles, right? Again, this is gonna hit him, right? But I'm not gonna be able to get in range to hit him because the circle is gonna have to be here. So if I cast this laser like this while holding E, remember I'm smart casting right now. If I'm holding this like this, Viktor's gonna automatically move from this direction upward towards the point where this edge of the ring is right here at this vertex. Just like this. So if I wanted to find funky angles, I can do that. But remember, it's all about finding that point of range for your vector, and then you can just move around and get comfortable using those lasers. And remember, all I'm doing is I'm walking. I have my entire mouse control is all about movement and aim. I'm not using my left click at all. Because I'm smart casting, I can walk, I can do everything I need to do, I can attack minions, and then right in the middle of attacking minions, I'll just throw a quick laser to them. Right? Quick, drag, simple. And as you get more comfortable with the range, this will become more second nature to you. Right? I know that I have to get about this close to hit him. I can go backwards, but if I go backwards, I have to get even closer. If I think that they're going to go a certain way, if they're going to go up to the left to dodge, I might throw the laser a little bit more towards the left side, because then they'll walk into it. Because remember, it's got a pretty decent hitbox size. See this hitbox size? Okay, right here. Right at the very tip of the floor. That's his hitbox size. So it actually catches people off guard because this is gonna hit them. But that just gives you an idea that the hitbox is pretty decently sized, pretty big. One other thing to know about Viktor's laser, if we can take everything we just learned about casting the Viktor laser, right? Max range, understanding where we need to stand, what our range looks like, we can now take it a step further. So if I know that to get to this right here, I have to flash forward about this far to hit this guy, right? If I flash E, I flash E, that's how much time it takes me to throw that. By the time I flashed, they've already used their mobility ability, they've already dashed, they've already done everything. Well, Viktor's laser can be buffered, and it's actually easier. So if I know that this is where the laser needs to go, and I have my E held down, no mouse, right? I have my E held down. As soon as I let go, and I already have my cursor forward, as soon as I let go, I hit flash. Do that again. So I'm max range. We know that this is max range right here, right? But let's say I'm just shy of that. But instead of making me move and then lasering, and instead of flashing and then lasering, because that takes too long, you can actually buffer it. So if I have the E already casted, and I let go of E and switch to D, I already have E already casted, and I let go of E and switch to D, you can see how much quicker that is. And all I'm doing is I'm holding E, mouse off hand, switch to D. Let go of E, switch to D. There's a small little timing you have to get used to, but that is essentially how you buffer Viktor's laser to catch people off guard compared to the slow one and the fast one. All right, with that out of the way, got our abilities out, we got our runes, we got our builds, pretty much everything that you need to know. Specific certain situations and matchups, we can go into more detail over time. We'll definitely be releasing more videos specifically on specific matchups and commentating, taking the fundamentals you learned from this video and applying it into real world examples. The main thing I wanted you to take away from this is all the little tips and tricks and things that should help you out with your Viktor gameplay, should make you a little bit more comfortable, specifically all the time we spent on the Viktor laser and how to animation buffer the Q and flash buffer the laser, and how to use that to your advantage to catch people off guard, how to use your range on your E and your ability to move while casting to your advantage as well to catch people off guard. It's a very, very critical tool, and it's gained me a lot of long range snipes on people under turret that think they're just slightly out of range, but in reality they never were. With that being said, it was our first guide video I've ever made. It's definitely rough around the edges, could definitely do some work. I know we're gonna make it better in the future. Please leave any comments or feedback of what you want to see improved or what you want to see added in the next videos. And if you have any questions or any comments or anything else you want to know about Viktor or myself and everything that we're doing here, feel free to drop by at my streams. I stream on Trovo, YouTube, and even Twitch multi-stream every single time I'm live. Feel free to comment there. Trovo will have the least amount of delay, so if you want quick interaction and quick responses, definitely follow me on Trovo, and that's definitely my main primary focus of platform, and I highly recommend checking it out. That also said, you can go join in the Discord. I'll post the Discord down in the description. Come into Discord, ask your questions, ask what you want, show me your progress on Viktor, and I'm hoping that this video helped and you do well in Season 11. Until then, you guys have a wonderful rest of your night, day, wherever you are, and hope to see you guys real soon. Thanks. You're almost attacking as the Q's still in mid animation. The only difference is I'm right clicking somewhere and then right clicking again, or you can also just double click on him. We'll go ahead and do it on the scuttle crab. So that's normal. Is once it's upgraded, it basically gives you Rylai's, a free Rylai's slow effect on every single one of your abilities, except every extra ult can't. Excuse me. So E is on him, max range. I've got my middle finger on E right now. I'm about to switch. I'm about to let go of the E key. I'm not gonna touch anything else. My mouse is off. My hand is off the mouse right now. I literally only have one finger on the key. About to let it go. Ready? E, and then I'm gonna switch to D. E, D.